Introducing you.
Hi, I'm Eddie Robinson, and in this episode, professional soccer player Nadia Nadim. She's known as the most influential and greatest Afghan female soccer player in the history of the sport. Nadia was born in Afghanistan. As a toddler growing up, her father, an army general, was executed by the Taliban. Then she, her mother, along with Nadia's 4 sisters, fled to neighboring Pakistan with fake passports. They arrived in refugee camps in Denmark, and it was there where Nadia discovered her passion to play soccer.
I think fate, maybe, was that beside the refugee camp, you had like all these football fields.
Stay tuned as we take you on a riveting journey with plenty of surprises along the way. ICU welcomes Afghan-Danish soccer player of Racing Louisville, Nadia Nadim. Oh yeah, I feel you. We hear you. I see you. You're listening to ICU. I'm Eddie Robinson. She's been widely known as one of the best, if not the most influential soccer athletes in professional women's sports, having spent time with several clubs and soccer leagues across the world, including, just to name a few, Manchester City, Fortuna Hjørring out in Denmark, Paris Saint-Germain of France, the Portland Thorns right here in the U.S., Sky Blue in New Jersey, and now Racing Louisville's football club out in Kentucky. As you'll hear in this episode of ICU, her journey of becoming a soccer player wasn't easy. In fact, her determination and her endurance will all be proven in her story that she'll share with us in awesome detail. Nadia Nadim has overcome some unbelievable obstacles in her life. The execution of her father by the Taliban in 2000. Nadia, her mother, and her 4 siblings fleeing war-torn Afghanistan into neighboring Pakistan with forged passports, then winding up in a refugee camp in Denmark. Her story is unbelievable. But that's not all of Nadia's journey. It appears that she hasn't quite yet scratched the surface of another one of her goals in life. Nadia is also studying to become a reconstructive surgeon, and she plans to complete her qualification requirements as soon as she retires from her passion of professional soccer. More on that front later in the episode. But for now, we begin our virtual chat with Nadia from a busy training facility out in Seattle. Her team, Racing Louisville, was on the road at the time of our interview. ICU was fortunate to catch up with her, and she was extremely generous with us in taking the time to share her remarkable story. This weekend in National Women's Soccer League action, Racing Louisville will be facing the Houston Dash, and it's going to be hard for me because I don't know who I'm going to cheer for, either you or the Houston Dash. It's going to be intense.
Follow your heart, whoever your heart says. That's the best decision.
But we are so honored. We're so grateful. It's Nadia Nadim. Thank you so much for being a guest on ICU.
Of course, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be a part of the show.
Yes, and what is it like to play for Racing Louisville?
We're about to see a big substitution, folks, for Racing Louisville. Nadia Nadim.
It's a new playground, right? It's a new playground that you're on in Kentucky, but I'm sure it'll be an awesome Nadia Nadim on the pitch as a forward. So how has the transition been like for you so far with Racing Louisville?
I mean, it's been really nice. I came 8-9 days ago. So the first week, I think it's been a good impression. The city is really nice. The players are eager to learn, eager to improve, which I love, And the reason I want to come here was because, as you said, it's a new team. It's a team that you are building up to become a winning team. And I love that, being a part of something where you can grow, where you can see your improvement right away. My first game against Washington, I played the second half. Didn't go the way I wanted to, because I hate losing. It's like something that makes me stay awake for a really long time. But I also know that Rome wasn't built in one day. If you want to build quality, that's going to take time, and mentally I'm prepared for that. Slowly, step by step, as I always say.
And that momentum of winning and all of that, where did that come from? Because it sounds like that's something that really drives you in your spirit of competition.
Yeah, definitely. I think I have it. I would say it's like partially in my DNA. My dad was a huge sportsman. He played for the Afghan felt hockey national team.
Sliding save by Jake Wetton.
And he was really into athletic. He was into football. He was the first person who actually introduced us to football. And as you said, born in Afghanistan, usually everyone in Afghanistan kind of wants to have a boy because they kind of show off their manhood, whatever, like with their sons. And my parents, they had 5 girls. So I think the 3 oldest, like my oldest sister, me, and my sister after me, even though my dad didn't have the sons, he kind of treated us like his sons. So when we used to go out and he was competing with his friends, like, look at my son, he can run this fast. He'll be like, look at my daughter, she can whoop your son's ass. So I think I kind of have it from that. And then being in a family with 5 sisters, everyone like having a character, everyone is kind of like same as me, always competing for everything. So as I said, I was born with it. From one side, from my parents, the other side, I grew up with it. And that makes me the person I am today. I hate to lose. I love winning. I love to improve. I love to learn new stuff. And that's the power, the source that makes me wake up every morning, I guess.
Yeah, and you were talking about your father. We're hearing this amazing accent, and it's sounding like beautiful to my ears. What? And I've been reading a lot about the number of languages that you speak, but just first kind of give us some background of where you're from. Definitely want to learn more about your father as well.
Yeah, so as you said, I was born in Afghanistan to Afghan parents. My dad was in the Afghan army, a general. The way I remember him, I would say, is like this super agent, this James Bond guy. He was like smart, athletic, like had a crazy aura when he walked in the room. And my mom was also a really smart lady, was a school inspector in Afghanistan. And what I remember before the war, obviously, was like safe environment. I've been raised in a good environment and safe family. And then, the war happened where my dad was unfortunately killed by the Taliban. And then, after that, everything was kind of have been chaos for a couple of years until we somehow found a new safe place in Denmark. So, yeah, I think the accent, I don't know if it's the Danish accent or the Afghan accent, I don't know, you have to tell me. I didn't knew I had an accent, I'm kidding.
But what was the year that your father, when did all of this take place? Do you remember?
So we came to Denmark as refugees in 2000, so this was a couple of years prior to 2000.
Got it. What do you know about your father in terms of take us through what you remember about him, if you even recall any memories with your father?
Yeah, of course I know. I think I was 7, 8 when he was killed. So I remember everything. It's weird. I don't know if this is normal, but I feel like I remember stuff since I was 4 years old, like really, like I can describe you with like the feeling, the sense that I was feeling that moment. But as I said, of what I remember really well, my father was that he was really busy. Him being a general, always had his soldiers around him, his driver taking him in home. When he was coming home, he had this 5-10 minutes where he had to adjust that he was home now, taking off all these general clothing, and then him being like this dad that you could toy around with. We used to jump on him and try to battle him and try to force him on the ground and stuff. So that's what I remember. But as I said, unfortunately, also a lot of the memories are from the war, because I was born in a country that was torn by the war, and my dad was one of them who was trying to fix it.
It was expected that they'd perish, just another footnote in the Taliban story. But they've managed to survive, and today they're fighting back.
I remember when the Taliban were gaining power and coming to the country, and we were at this point in the capital in Kabul, and a lot of his friends were like leaving the country because they knew what's gonna happen, and they're like, General, you need to leave because if you get captured, that's not gonna be a nice scene. And he's like, no, this is my country, I haven't done anything wrong. I've served my country and I want to stay, and I want to be a part of serving this and and serve the people. So he had the chance to leave and then seek somewhere else, but didn't, and at the end that's what cost him his life.
Wow, just devastating.
Yeah.
Coming up, more with Afghan-Danish pro soccer athlete Nadia Nadim as she shares with us details about her fascinating journey of how her family, which included her mom and 4 of her sisters, fled to Denmark using fake passports after Nadia's father, an army general, was murdered by the Taliban in Afghanistan. Nadia has now become one of the best professional female soccer players in the league. I'm Eddie Robinson. More of her compelling story as ICU returns in just a moment. Welcome back. You're listening to ICU. I'm Eddie Robinson, and we're speaking with Nadia Nadim. She's a professional soccer player from Denmark. Last season, she helped win Paris Saint-Germain, a national club out in France, earn the French League Division I title for the first time in their history, scoring 18 goals in 27 games.
Nadia!
And now, she's looking to take her portfolio of dominance on the pitch as a forward for her new team, Racing Louisville, out in Kentucky.
Racing Louisville SC.
Roll with us.
But her journey to get here to the States was all but smooth and easy. You see, her father, Rabbani Nadim, was an army general in Afghanistan. And in the year 2000, he was executed by the Taliban when they took control of the country. Nadia was only 11 years old. And it was then that Nadia's mom, Humida, rounded up her 5 daughters with one mission: to get out of the deadly war zone of Afghanistan. We continue our conversation with Nadia Nadim as she speaks to us virtually from a busy training facility out in Seattle. The experience of you and your mother and your 4 sisters, can you kind of take us back there? It seems like you were all on the run.
Yeah.
You get from Afghanistan, and then all of a sudden you're trying to get to a safer place. What was that experience like?
Crazy. As soon as my dad passed away, things start to be. That's obviously a big shock already, but everything went downhill after that. Living in a place where the Taliban had so much power, telling women not to go to school, not to go to work.
They don't permit the women, go to school. They don't permit the girls go to school, university.
Do not go outside if you're not with a guy, and we were only women in my family, like my mom, all kids are girls. So it made it extremely hard to have a life. And as I said, my mom is a smart lady. She's a fighter. We tried for a while to make this happen, but it was impossible. And then slowly, she gathering her resources and tried to figure out how to get out of this, how to give us a life or a
Outside
future.
of Afghanistan.
Yes, because at that point, it was impossible to have a future in Afghanistan. Not if you're a female and not with those wild men running the country.
Correct.
And so paid a lot of money to a human smuggler who drove us with minivans, or we were transported with minivans from Afghanistan to Pakistan, crossing the border. The Pakistan-Afghanistan border is really long, so it's not that a big deal to get through it. And then we stayed in Pakistan for a couple of months waiting for fake passports that would match our profiles, I guess. And this happened obviously before 9/11. So at this point,
That's right.
security wasn't as crazy as it is right now.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I remember we waited, and this little Pakistani guy would come in once a week with his little gold chains and had like a mustache. Always had like this same white traditional Pakistani clothing on. And he had this thing in his mouth. It's called pan, which is a kind of leaf tobacco, I guess. When you chew, it gets red. So yeah, he would come and like chewing his thing, and he'd be like, "Listen to my mom. I can send you 2 kids to Holland if you want." And my mom would be like, "No." So this was like you negotiating your future, or I'm gonna send them there. I have passports that matches these 2. Mom was like, "No, I want us to be together."
Together.
So
okay. Wow.
after a
It was
couple of
almost like
months-
Sophie's choice, or we'll take them
Basically.
to here, take them to
Yeah,
there. Oh my
basically,
God.
yeah. And you have to understand at this point, you're so desperate and you're in such a state of mind and such a survival mode that you will do anything to have a life or to not be killed. And my mom will be like, "No, that's not it." Couple of months gone, guy comes in and he's like, "I think I have a profile that matches you guys, passports, and you're off in a couple of days." He gave us like a stack of Pakistani clothing, and this is your identity. You better make sure that they don't find out that you're not from Pakistan, because then it's your problem. We've got no money. You're gonna be in prison. Game over for you, basically. So yeah, we remember me walking through the airport, first time in the airport at this point, and it felt like kind of everyone knew what was happening. He was walking kind of in front of us and checking around, and we got through the security, flew to Italy. First time on the plane, I was loving it. I know I was super scared, scared because I was scared of what if people find out and
Right.
we're gonna be
And
in
how
prison
old
or
are you
sent
at
back
this-
to Afghanistan. At this point, I
your
am
age?
10 years old. Yeah. And going to Italy from there, we were picked up in the airport by this Eastern European looking guy and his little Volkswagen. Drove into an apartment. I found out later on it was Milan, because I didn't knew. I was just following,
You was just going.
Yeah,
You're just going.
now it is basically, and I know we were young. 3 of my siblings are actually younger than me. Yeah, so everyone asked me, "How will you guys react?" And I was like, "We weren't reacting. We're just following orders." My mom would say, "You better not move," and we were like, "Okay," because you do understand the seriousness of the situation. It's basically you want to survive, and at this point, it doesn't matter if you're a kid, if you're 2 years old, or you're an adult. It's the same mechanism that like hits you. It's survive or get caught and get back and maybe die.
I'm Eddie Robinson, and you're listening to ICU. We're speaking with professional soccer player Nadia Nadim. She's taking us through her incredible journey as a child in her quest for survival to the country she now calls home, Denmark. Nadia currently plays for Racing Louisville here in the United States. Your mother really sort of was training you, or at least teaching you, to be in that mode of survival, correct?
Definitely. I think one thing is that you have like your mom, who was like this rock telling everyone like this is what's gonna happen, and one other thing is also you can read the environment. You know what's happening. Like as I said, I might be super young, but like you see people, you hear them talking, and it's 100% clear this is the scenario. And if my mom gives you the eyes, it's about to get real. Basically, yeah. She's like, So
you all were living. Where were you all at this point?
At this point, we were transported, brought into this basement apartment, which is like one room, one toilet thing, and it seems like kind of like a checkpoint or a pit stop for a lot of people, I guess, because it looked horrendous. The toilet was disgusting. I've never seen anything like it. And imagine at this point you're coming from a long travel, and I was like, I'm not gonna drink or eat the next couple of days, because if I do, I have to go to the toilet, and that's not gonna happen. It was really disgusting. And one thing I remember really clearly, me sitting, it was like two little, like one of them sofas that you can fall into beds, but we were just sitting on them. And I remember there was a little super small TV with one of the longs antenna. You have an antenna along, your old television had the antennas where you had to find the right direction to receive the signal. Yeah.
Correct.
And it was showing some kind of winter ski thing. And I was like, oh, this is so interesting. So I was watching that, and we waited for a day and a half, and the guy came again, and he's like, this is now, take your bag. We took the bag. We had like 2 small sports bags with us. My mom had the documents that could kind of tell everyone who she was, wife of a general, that's her life, blah, blah, blah. The fake passports were for you to fly from Pakistan to Italy. Yes, but then once you arrived, you have your own like identification, so you can see if when you're seeking refugee, you have to asylum, you have to be able to tell who you are, why you are here. Like,
got it.
So, and that's all the stuff were like her life basically.
Wow.
So yeah, the guy stops up the car, the little golf car in a parking spot. It's on a highway thing where there's a lot of trucks. It's a rest place or a parking spot for trucks on the highway, because I think now I know you have to have you have to, lorries. You have to have a stop after certain hours of driving. Okay. And he's like, when I say so, you guys run over to that truck and climb behind it. And yeah, he's like, now, and this is it. My mom has my youngest sister in her arms, me and my older sister making sure that the 2 young ones are with us. I think I have one of the sports bags with me, and then we just start running. We climbed behind the truck, and I think the driver knew, and they had make a little spot behind it. It had cargo, some kind of stuff in it, like boxes, but on the end of the cargo, just closer to the driver area, you had a little spot you could sit. And we're told to sit and not say anything, because again, if you get discovered, it's game over, and you're gonna get prison, and from there you're gonna be sent back to Afghanistan. And yeah, we're sitting there for 50-something hours. Jeez. At some point, when the truck starts like moving around slowly, you're stopping. And it stops up, and the guy's like, now get out. We jump out. It's early in the morning. So at this point, the plan the entire time has been, there's something my mom told us later, or told us, was because I had family in England, and we wanted to go to England to like kind of reunite with family. It makes things easier. Okay. So we been dropped off, and at this point I'm like, oh, London. We arrived in London. Yeah. So I'm looking around, and there's 2 emotions. One is I'm confused. Secondly, I'm super hungry, because I haven't really had food for almost 2 days. Because again, if you ate or drank in the lorry, you had to pee in the lorry. And I was like, not gonna happen. So yes, I'm gonna try to survive.
That's right.
And I was confused. I was like, I would always imagine London to be bigger, or England differently. At this point, I don't know nothing about Denmark. The only countries I kind of know was England, Germany, Norway I've heard about. Denmark, nothing. So I look around, I'm like, this is so weird. But whatever, my stomach is like killing me because of hunger.
Sure.
So we walk around probably for 40-45 minutes. There's not a single soul on the streets. So it's like 4 a.m. and Eastern morning in Denmark. Easter, which is like a holiday, so everyone's kind of off and everyone sleeps in, so there's no cars, nothing. After I think like an hour or so, we see this old guy walking his dog, and my mom asks him where we are, and he looks confused and explains him that we are in this city called Randers in Denmark. And yeah, after the shock of that, we didn't really care. You just want to be somewhere safe, away from the rockets, I guess. So yeah, and then we found a police station. My mom went and was sick asylum, and now I'm here.
Jeez. Well, you're in Denmark, but then I can imagine that that's probably where you started to discover soccer.
Yes.
That's kind of what captivated you with this round ball, so to speak.
Definitely. My love.
And what was it about that pushed you to want to learn more about this sport?
You know, football came to me in a time that I was struggling as a kid. We actually were in the refugee camp, and I think fate maybe was that beside the refugee camp you had like all these football fields. That's the first time I saw girls play football. I used to watch other kids play football, and I'll be like, wow, that's so amazing. We had like this fence between the refugee camp and the football things. You know, at the beginning you're shy, you're scared what's happening, you're new. I used to just like hang out outside the fences and look at them.
Sure.
And then you'd be like, oh, well, I also want to do this. We didn't really have the balls or, you know, the goals or everything. We just had like this really round dodgeball, I think, a pink one. And everyone was playing against everyone, yeah. It was fun times. And after a couple of months, you know, it was me, a couple of my friends, the refugee camp from different countries, kind of getting closer to these fields, gaining a bit more courage, you know. And then I remember sometimes when the kids had practice or shooting practice and they would not hit the goal, the balls would go outside the goal frame. We used to get the balls and put them back for them. And yeah, after a while I was like, you know what, I really want to be a part of this thing. It looks so fun, and you know, and I'm trying to do the same stuff they're doing, but it doesn't really look real. So I just went and asked the coach. I didn't even remember really how I asked him because I didn't speak the language. I didn't speak English. The only language I spoke was actually Dari, which I speak at home with my mom. Okay. But I just pointed. I was like, me, there. And the guy was like, what? Is this real?
Right.
Yeah, and this is how my obsession started. Since then, you know, I've been with a ball all my life, and this is how I wanted to improve, because when you're with the ball, you kind of forget everything else. I love football. It makes me really happy. And
it's that aspect that I love about your play. When I see you in action, it seems like a lot of the madness, the chaos that you have gone through, even as a young child, when you step on that pitch, you know, when you step out on that field, it's like, you know, you're taking into a world of competition that you love. And this is where your home is, right? I mean, tell us more about that feeling.
Definitely. I think, you know, as you said, it's a world where it's in your hands. It's kind of what you bring on the table, what you get out of it. And I love that.
Yes.
It's not about anything else. It's not about what your background is. It's not about like who your parents are, all that.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. You can be anyone. But on there, you decide if you want to be the boss or not.
Nadim approfitta del rimpallo al limite terra, la solita Harder, arriva in mezzo Nadim.
You know, and I love that aspect of sports in general, that you can be whatever you want to be.
Nadia Nadim, her return.
It's just in your hands, and how bad do you want to be it, you know?
And Nadia Nadim steps up and places it.
And I think that's probably the thing that I loved about the sports the most. It gave me kind of a voice, or it gave me an identity. I was a nobody outside it. On the field, I was like, I'm your boss. Sit your ass down. You know, so.
Coming up, we chat more with Afghan Danish soccer player Nadia Nadim and find out what's been the most racist incident that's happened in her life and why it still resonates with her to this day. Plus, we'll get the latest on her medical school aspirations. I'm Eddie Robinson, and you do not want to miss this next segment of I See You. We'll be right back in just a moment. You're listening to I See You. I'm your host, Eddie Robinson, and we're putting a spotlight on Afghan Danish soccer player Nadia Nadim. She's here in the United States playing for Racing Louisville, a National Women's Soccer League team who's battling the Houston Dash this weekend at BBVA Stadium right here in the Bayou City. But with Nadia, it seems she's been battling all her life, with her father being executed by the Taliban at a young age, fleeing to neighboring Pakistan with her mother and 4 sisters, living in refugee camps in Denmark, and then finally discovering her passion to play soccer. Teams from all over the world look to her to score lots of goals during her play on the field. Outside of soccer, she spends time doing charity work, partnering with the United Nations and learning a plethora of foreign languages. On top of becoming a force on the soccer pitch, Nadia is also studying to become a reconstructive surgeon. Where is all of this tenacity coming from? Stay put. It's our final segment in a compelling conversation with arguably the greatest Afghan female football player of all time, Nadia Nadim. Now, describe an experience, Nadia, that, look, perhaps it's off the pitch, especially when people see you, without that soccer uniform. Tell us about an experience that really resonates with you that felt like racism, like a moment of xenophobia, if you will, where you felt, you know what, this didn't quite feel right, and I'm sensing some form of discrimination. Can you tell us about a moment like that that's happened in your life?
Plenty. Yeah, I know, it's a shocker. In Denmark, when I arrived, there wasn't a lot of refugee kids. Everyone kind of looks the same. And I remember in my school, I was the only kid who looked like a bit darker, darker skinned. I was a bit darker than I am now. I don't know why. Must have been the sun.
Must be.
Yeah, must be. I don't know. And I'll act differently. I spoke differently. I walked differently. Everything about me was different. And I remember at the beginning, kids on schoolyard, I don't mind if something's direct at me. I know how to tackle that. I'll stand up. I'm like, what's your problem, And I had fights. I remember me having, 6th, 7th grade, I was fighting boys who used to call me stuff. I remember boys throwing me apple, like when we were eating apple, and throwing at me and calling me like names, go back to home, whatever. Yeah. But I always felt that was something I could tackle because I could see it. I was like, this is a moron. He has an issue. Yeah. I'm going to tell him, what's your problem? But something that I've always thought was super hard to tackle with is this feeling that you've been treated differently my entire life. But I don't know what the reason is. I remember I always felt having this feeling that if you had me and you had like another teammate of mine performing similar, or maybe me performing 5% better, that I wouldn't get what I deserved, So I always had to make sure that I overkilled it. Sure. I had really be like, do really, really well to get kind of the same recognition, I guess. Mm-hmm. And for me, I always felt it was so weird. I don't understand that. I still don't, And then certain points I felt it was hard to tackle with, and this is also one of the reasons my sister stopped playing, because my older sister was a bigger football player than I was. She was like a way bigger talent than I was. And I remember when we were like 16, 17, she was playing for the youth 19 national team. Huge talent. Okay. And this aspect of it, she couldn't tackle because, being treated differently. And then again, if it's not direct, but the actions don't add up. Sure. It doesn't make sense. Sure. And she stopped because of it. She was having a lot of problems with it. And me, I was like, what? If this is the playing field, then I just have to make sure that there's no question about my talent, my skill. I'm gonna make sure they can't ignore me, basically. And I remember even being the first time called up on the national team. I don't think the coach liked me at all. Like, I think he was forced to bring me because he could not have me on the team. So I think this kind of stuff I've experienced a lot. It's hard for me to tackle because I don't know how to tackle it. You're being treated differently. So let's say that I'm doing the same work, but I am being treated differently because I don't know why. I remember being younger.
Even
also,
it's the same work.
Same exact work. You're not gonna get the same recognition. I remember refs. I remember even have like this huge thing with this one of the refs. I knew he hated me. I don't know why, and I think one of the things is that. And he used to give me a red card, and at some point I told him this. I remember me scoring. He calling me offside a couple of times, and I was like, "This is it. Like, fair enough, it's offside." And I'm one of them people who, when I sense something, I'm gonna speak about it. I was like, "Okay, that's his fault." So I'm taking the ball from halfway, I'm scoring the goal, and then I celebrate like this. I was like, was this an offside? And then he's giving me the red card for that.
Red card being issued.
Because he's like, and then he repeated the same thing after another game. And then third time I was like, you know what? I was like, this can't be about football. This is more than this. What's your problem?
There's a motive. There's an agenda.
This I have experienced all my life, on the football, off the football. As I said, my sister probably couldn't tackle with this feeling of not being fair. It's not always fair. Yeah, it's not fair. Just because you are the way you are, who you are, and you're not being given the same opportunities, or not being treated the same way as some of your colleagues or some of the girls that you're playing with. And for me, I think that was more my motivation thing. Again, I was like, it. If this is how the rules are, then it is what it is.
And it sounds like that's the thoughts that you have on, in terms of playing as a woman. Do you find that that's still a problem in women's sports of today? Is this something that you'd like to see change, or at least be a focal point in women's sports? Even pay equity. I don't even know if that's been something that's been on your radar. What are your thoughts on women and playing women's sports, and whether or not they could be seen differently and be respected and valued more?
First, I will say, it has come a far way, the women's game, women's football, women's sports. It was a lot different, 10, 15 years ago.
In March, all 28 members sued the U.S. Soccer Federation for gender and pay discrimination.
But obviously, we haven't reached the level that you want. You don't get the same respect as, let's say, the men's do. You don't, when it comes to finances, you obviously don't get paid the same way they do. And for me, it is, again, it's not fair. I do not understand why there's this huge difference in something where you do the same thing, you train as much as they do, you sacrifice as much as everyone else, but what you get out of it is not even like a tenth of that. For me, it's, again, I don't really care about the money. I don't. For me, it's more about having the access. It's about being treated the same way, being given the same chance. Give the young girls the same facilities, give them the same trainings, give them the same chance to compete, and then the growth of the football is going to make that you're going to have better investments in it, So, and that is something that I think is not there right now. It's changing, but very, very slow. And I hope it's going to change more in the future. I'm going to be realistic with you. I don't think ever that's going to be where you're going to have a state where you're going to have equal pay. I think that's maybe certain countries it might, but I don't think around the world now. I can't see it. We can, make the difference smaller, but I can't see it to be disappearing all the way.
Yeah, that is being completely honest. We're speaking with Afghan-Danish professional soccer player Nadia Nadim. She's a forward for Racing Louisville FC, as well as for the Danish national team. So, Nadia, you're going crazy out there on the soccer pitch, scoring goals all over the place. How on earth do you find the time to study for medical school? And for what it's worth, you'll soon be wrapping up qualifications and exams to complete the medical program that you're in. What's going on here?
I don't know where it came from. I guess just me being super smart, I guess.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
No, it's been a process, my mom always speaks about education, education being the key to a lot of problems. One of them is me, when we were young, I was very, very poor, and I knew at that point women's football wasn't like something that you'd be like, oh, this is what I'm going to do in my life. But I knew that I wanted to change my circumstances for sure. And also I knew that I wanted to help people. Those are the two things that was very important to me. One, because I felt the help on my own body. I know how it feels, to receive help in situations where you don't really have anything or anyone to count on. And I thought, being a doctor, you're gonna be in those situations where your choice is gonna have life-changing impact. As I said, I'm smart, so in school, my mom always told me, you can play as much football you want as long as you bring me straight A's. And I was like, yes, sir. Say no
wow.
more. So
That's
I think,
awesome.
yeah. So and all like my siblings, the same thing. My older sister's a doctor. I have two other sisters who are nurses.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So in terms of, as I said, med school, I'm one semester from finishing. I'm gonna hopefully finish this end of this year, my exams and everything. And my goal is obviously to have my own clinic with my family at some point. I want to be in Doctors Without Borders. I think the work they do is phenomenal.
Doctors Without Borders is an independent medical humanitarian organization.
I love the fact that they go places. Once you do gain this experience of being in situations where you have to solve this problem, you're not going to be calling your other doctors, hey, an expert in this area. You just have to find a solution. And secondly, you help people that are in need.
Yeah.
And so that was the reasons.
And I'm thinking in terms of a timeline, perhaps even next year, 2022, we could be calling you Dr. Nadia Nadim.
Yes, you could. Call me that. I'll be like, yes.
That is awesome. Well, how do you balance this grueling work of being on top of your game as a professional athlete and then of the work ethic of becoming a plastic surgeon? I mean, how do you balance that now with regards to what your life is like as a professional athlete?
Again, I think humans are capable of way more than you think. It's all about how bad you want it.
Wow.
It sounds a cliche, and you probably heard this a million of times. It is about how hard you want it. If you really want something really hard, you're gonna sleep less. You're gonna make time. You're not gonna see your friends. And for me, it's kind of like that combination of I wanted to prove people wrong as well, because I've been told you cannot do both. No one's done it before, all that crap. And then, this is the stuff that kept me going. And I think it's dedication and planning. I think you have to be really good at planning also, because and if you have 3 hours to study, because the rest of the day you're training, recovering, wherever, then you're going to study really well in those 3 hours. And then you're going to be sharp. And
have no other choice but to do it. And here's the thing, Nadia, because I'm wondering, with all of what you've gone through, I'm curious, what motivates or inspires you, or who has inspired you to succeed and learn about what drives Nadia Nadim? Was it those moments, those experiences that you shared with us some 15, 20 minutes ago of saying, look, when you're caught up in the rapture, when you're faced with, survival of the damn fittest, what choice do you have? So what is driving Nadia Nadim?
I think that's basically it. You said it, I think for me, my drive, in fact, has been me never experiencing things that I have. I don't ever want to be in that position where I was as a kid. I never want to be that poor I was when I was younger. I don't want my family to go through that again. I want my mom to have the best life possible. And I want people being wrong, I want to prove them wrong. I think these are like the things that keep me going. Because as I said, a lot of times I've been told, you cannot do this. She's never going to make the national team. Who the is she? All these things, and even now when I hear it, my heart is like, but that's how, you have to take those emotions, those things people have said to you. I think you have to make it into your force, into your gas, or and then for me it works. That's the stuff that makes me want to wake up earlier and be like, oh.
Yeah. How's your mother doing? She's in Denmark, correct?
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, how's she
my
doing?
mom's doing amazing. Yeah,
Awesome.
I love my mom. I
Awesome.
think she's one of the coolest person on this earth. She is so stubborn, and I love that. Sometimes annoying, but moms, I think she is like an incredible lady. Like, I have mad respect for her, not just because she's my mom, it's just because the way she is, and she's living her best life. We're taking care of her. She was just actually vacationing in Turkey with her best friend a couple of days ago. So.
Okay.
Taking care of the family,
That's great. And you're doing so much, not only for your family, but for others as well. Are you still working with the charity that helps build, the sports clubs and refugee camps around the world? Tell us about that. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, definitely. Again, as I think, if you have the energy and the platform to do positive, to have an impact on people, you should, and you don't have to if you don't want to, like, but I think it's just like a human thing. Like, the best way I always explain it is, if you see an elder guy fall in front of you, what's your first reaction? Are you gonna just walk past, or are you gonna try to help them up? And for me, that's the same mindset. If you see someone is in struggle, you want to help if you have the energy. And if you don't have the energy, you're just gonna smile and say, hey, are you okay? At least like do something. So I work with these organizations. I'm ambassador for Danish Refugee Council.
The organization was initially formed temporarily for the sole purpose of providing shelter and welcoming the Hungarian refugees. And that's how the Danish Refugee Council came to be.
Who I've been with in Kenya, Kakuma refugee camps, bringing football, bringing a bit of joy with the kids, trying to kind of inspire them and tell them, like, it is hard times, but you have to have faith. It's possible for you to change it, but it takes something, from you. I'm ambassador for UNESCO for girls' education, because again, I think there are over 70 million girls who don't have access to school or don't have access to education.
What does her education mean for our future?
I want to study science so that I will become a medical doctor in future.
Getting an education has enabled me to live a better life and help my community.
But too many girls and women still don't have the opportunities they deserve. 132 million girls are out of school. Only 1% of the world's poorest girls will complete secondary education. And of the 750 million adults without basic literacy skills, 2/3 are women. With a new collective movement, Her Education, Our Future, UNESCO is fast-tracking its work on girls' and women's education. With better data, policies and practices, we are empowering more girls and women to transform their lives and communities.
And in a lot of these situations, education is the way you can improve the world. In terms of, like, if you talk about anything, like if it's racism, I think it's because of ignorance. You have to educate the people to think differently. If it's homophobia, same thing. If it's Islamophobia, it's the same thing. It's education. How do I educate this person who have this mind or this mindset of this is how reality is, but what your reality is not, So you have to tell them, no, what you've been hearing or what you thought it was is not right. So I say education is everything. So that's the reason I try to spread it. I try to, when I have time, spend my time on helping others and inform them, inspire them, I guess.
Yeah, and that says so much about you and your character. Last question here. After leaving Afghanistan as a child and then finding yourself in a refugee camp out in Denmark, you've traveled all over the world. You've been playing a sport that you love, obviously. There's a power, there's an endurance level that you maintain while you're out there on the pitch, and you're playing here in the States in the National Women's Soccer League as a professional soccer player. It's a total change, lifestyle.
It is a total change. I think it's a huge change. But for me, I think it's a big challenge. I love, as I said, as a new team, as young players, and then they are not used to performing at this highest level, not yet. But for me, my job is going to be to make this team to a winning team. And then I think it's the same thing when I came to Paris. They hadn't won the league ever, and that was my task. They brought me in to make a winning team. And I don't want to sound arrogant or egoistic. It's not about it, I think, but mindset-wise, I can help have an impact on the team. And I love that challenge. I think it's about the challenge. It's not about anything else right now. I just have to get adjusted that, as you said, is not, where you have, is not France. But I do adapt quick. So.
Nadia Nadim, what's the biggest lesson that you've had to learn about yourself?
Biggest lesson? Oh, that's a good question. I've never been asked this question before. Biggest lessons that I've learned about myself. I think, I always knew humans are capable of a lot, but I think something that I've learned is how far I can push my boundaries. That's something I've learned. I know we always been being put in boxes. No matter who you are as a female, you're supposed to be in this box. If you are like, a male, you've been put in this box. But I think you can always push these boxes, these frames. And I don't believe in frames anymore. I think it's in your hands. And then you'll be surprised how far you can push your boundaries in terms of anything. Like, I knew this, but every time, and I love this challenge of like pushing myself to see, am I able to come over this, or is this gonna like crack me a tiny bit, And so for me, it's always about like putting myself under those situations where I can overcome it. Like, you are on the edge of not getting over it, but once you do it, you're like, oh my God, this is crazy. And then you have this extra confidence and extra fuel. You're like, oh, that's pretty amazing. That's what I've learned. Does that make sense?
That makes a total amount of sense. Look, you're brilliant. You're a force on the pitch, and you're so amazing to set aside time during your practice and be a guest on ICU with Eddie Robinson. Nadia Nadim, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. It was fun to talk to you, Eddie.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I hope to see you when you're in Houston, Texas. This is August 29th. Be ready. Houston Dash and Nadia Nadim and the Racing Louisville FC. We are so ready for that competition. It's going to be great.
I'm looking forward to the 29th of August, Eddie.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And that's a wrap for another episode of ICU. Our production team includes technical director Todd Holzlander, producer, editor Shannon McCurchie, editor Mark DeClaudio, and sound designer Dave McDermott. ICU is a production of Houston Public Media. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and have any comments or show ideas, send us an email, talk@iseeushow.org. You can find all our episodes online at iseeushow.org and subscribe to the podcast wherever you find your favorites. I'm your host and executive producer, Eddie Robinson, and I feel you. We hear you. I see you. Thanks so much for listening.